So those are my parents. It's the 1960s, and they clearly love each other, but they fought all the time. With each other and with my older brother and sister. That's me with the two of them outside the house we grew up in. Now, I didn't care for the fighting, so I would go out in the backyard and I would play with my cars and trucks in the sand. I used to love to build roads and bridges and tunnels and parking lots, like little worlds I could control, because I was really frustrated with the world outside of my control. You know, I knew things could be better, and I'd watch them fighting, and I'd just think, why don't they grow up? You know, and 50 years later, I look around at the world, and I see people bullying and fighting and not taking responsibility and blaming other people, and I think, when are we going to grow up? Because we live in a time of immense promise, but if we don't grow up soon, the promise is just going to go right through our fingers. And I'm going to take you on a short journey, show you what I mean by this, but first, I want to introduce you to a metric I created. It's called the lifetime of humanity. And it's 70 years of human history. And the reason it's 70 years is because for thousands of years, if you lived to be an adult human, it's very likely that you would live into your 70s. So our journey begins in 8000 BC. There's 5 million human beings on the planet. And a child is born in the Near East, and his parents are hunters who do a little farming. But he and his cohorts, they grow up and they settle into semi-stable communities, and they focus on farming. And this is the beginning of human civilization. 70 years go by, and that's the first lifetime of humanity. Another child is born. He pushes farming along. 70 years go by, and that's the second lifetime of humanity. And the first 5,000 years of our journey are kind of foggy, so we skip ahead to 3400 BC. In the 65th lifetime of humanity, a child is born in southern Mesopotamia, and he grows up to be a scribe who learns to write with pictographs by pressing little wedges into soft clay. In the 77th lifetime of humanity, a child is born in Egypt, and she grows up in awe as the Great Pyramid of Giza rises. And now there's 25 million human beings on the planet. In the 88th lifetime, a child is born in Babylonia, and he grows up under the laws that Hammurabi has etched into these giant tablets and placed into the city square. In the 114th lifetime, a child is born in the Middle East, and he grows up and he hears the words of Jesus, who says that the kingdom of God is within us all. In the 131st lifetime, a child is born in England, and she grows up just as the Magna Carta is issued, limiting the power of government. And now there are 400 million human beings on the planet. In the 139th lifetime, a child is born in colonial Massachusetts, and he grows up and he hears the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then in the 141st lifetime, a child is born into a world with electricity and telephone and the light bulb, as if they existed throughout human history. And she dies around the time of the Second World War, and it's around 1940, and now there's 2.3 billion human beings on the planet. Then a child is born into a world of television and atomic bombs, and he lives to see the prevalence of mobile communications and globalization and obesity. Well, welcome to the 21st century, and it's only been 142 lifetimes since the dawn of civilization. And the choices made by the people in each of those lifetimes have brought us to where we are right now, here, today, at the start of the 143rd lifetime. And you know what? It's the most promising lifetime ever. I mean, think about it. We've mapped the human genome, and we're about to embark on mapping the human brain. We can study the data that's spewed forth every moment and find patterns we never knew existed and learn from those patterns. We've discovered what to eat and how to exercise to stay healthy, and we have learned the true value of forgiveness, love, and joy. And we have over 7 billion fellow human beings on the planet. That's almost 300 times the number that when the pyramids were built. Now, imagine if we were all inspired towards common goals and a common vision of humanity, what we could accomplish over these next 70 years during this next lifetime. And we have devices like the mobile smartphone that can tie us all together on a common mission. And devices like this, inventions, they're gifts from humanity. They have contributions from people throughout other lifetimes. They gave us math and reading and science and language and metallurgy and the transistor and the muscle to make things happen. They made these contributions, these creations possible. And they were Muslims and Jews and Christians and Buddhists, and they came from all corners of the earth. And they stand with us now, hand in hand, as we move forward. And everything we do and everything we use is tied to those who came before us. And we can't pick and choose, and we can't opt out of humanity. And if we choose to fight with humanity, we're fighting with ourselves. You know, research tells us that when we have a choice to make, we use one of two strategies. If there's something to calculate, the cheapest, the longest, the widest, we do a calculation, we make a choice, we move on. But when there's nothing to calculate, we think, who am I? A Christian oil executive from Texas, a Jewish attorney from New York, a Muslim scientist in Iran. And then we think of the situation and we think, what would a person like me, this Muslim, this Texan, this attorney do in a situation like this? But what if we didn't think of ourselves with those labels, but rather thought of ourselves as human beings first? What if we thought of ourselves as human beings first? Because we know what a human being would do. A human being would rush into a burning building to save other human beings. A human being would rush towards a bomb blast to save the wounded. A human being would give unselfishly to those in need. And we see this every day. But when we put the veneer of race, religion, nationality, class on our choices, they can become selfish and greedy and sometimes horrific. But we're all human beings first, all 7 billion of us. The planet is buzzing with the spark of humanity like never before. Imagine the power, the potential, the promise of all that humanity and all that we could accomplish over the next 70 years. Now, I know that this is a very optimistic vision and a very positive view of humanity, and maybe it's not for everyone. But for those of you who could see through the eyes of that first child who learned to farm, and through those 142 lifetimes, and can appreciate all that's been accomplished and all that we have been given, you have to see that it's been leading to us here now in this most promising of lifetimes. And we have to embrace that promise because a better world has never been so close at hand. But politics and personal freedom and the distribution of wealth and technology, the educational system, so many complex systems are veering in potentially perilous directions, completely out of control of the individual. And if we don't take this opportunity now, if we make excuses, we will not get another opportunity. You know, ever since I was this little boy, I would look out at the world, and I knew that we could do better. I knew that we could do more. And if he could talk to us, he would tell us, just stop thinking short-sighted and start thinking long-term. Stop blaming other people, other nations, other religions, other classes, and start realizing that we are one people, humanity. And take responsibility for our shared time on this planet. I mean, in effect, he would say, grow up. And don't wait for somebody to give us a new set of rules, but be willing to move forward listening to the voice of those 142 lifetimes, because they're telling us that this is the most promising lifetime ever. And if we work together as human beings first, over the next 70 years, we can use those gifts that humanity has given us to overcome these big challenges and create a better world, a new world, one world where we can live peaceful, healthy, and free lives. Because that is the promise of our lifetime. And we must keep that promise. Thank you.